Okay, welcome in. I'm going to now do my preview for week number 6 of the National Football League season. Can you believe we're already 6 weeks into the National Football League season? That's a month and a half already. My God, time flies by. So last week, I had a very poor performance when it came to doing my predictions for week number 5. I finished with 7 wins and 7 losses. A very bad week. So therefore, as of week number 6, or heading into week number 6, I have a grand total of 50 wins and 50 correct guesses and 28 incorrect. So I'm still technically 22 games above 500, but compared to my week 1 through 3 stats, it's been a very, very rough week. Now, I could technically go 0-14. I believe there are 14 games, if I'm not mistaken, because week number 5 we had our first bye weeks, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be bye weeks from weeks 6 through 17, if I'm not mistaken. Then everybody's going to play week number 18 or something like that. So, let's dive into it. So we have the Eagles and the Giants. This is a very crucial game for both these teams. If the Eagles can play consistently, and I have been watching highlights, I just haven't had a chance to watch full games because, unfortunately, work and life get in the way. But if they can play a full 60 minutes of football on both the offensive side and defensive side, I would feel that they can be a very competitive team. The one thing that concerns me is, I know it could be that the O-line isn't the same from last year, and I know that players have left due to trades and free agency, but I don't understand how they just don't seem to have much of a run game this year. And that's very concerning because I'm willing to say that they're more of a run steady team than a passing team. Not saying that Jalen Hurts can't pass the ball or that he doesn't pass the ball, but when you think of Philadelphia, you think of the RPO with Jalen Hurts faking it to Saquon, taking off, running the other way, and vice versa. Barkley taking the handoff. He's supposed to be, he was the offensive player of the year last year. He would have been MVP, or he was in the MVP category, but unfortunately he just didn't get enough votes. And he had 2,000 yards rushing last year, so why he's performing so much worse this year is very concerning. I don't think he's going to make 2,000 yards. I'll be even bold to say I'd be surprised if he made 1,500. Now, he should get over the 1,000-yard mark at some point during the season, but I think he only rushed for 30 yards or maybe 40 yards against the Broncos. Now, granted, that is a very scary and very good defense, so you could make that as a legitimate argument as to why it was difficult to run against that defense, but for a team that you pay a guy to run the ball and you're not giving him that opportunity is very concerning. If I'm not mistaken, I think he only had 1 or maybe 2 handoffs in the second half. If you, and I can't stress this enough, if you're leading by 2 scores, doesn't matter if it's 10 points, 14 points, or anything in that mix, if you run the ball, the clock is your friend. I can't stress that enough. You throw the ball 3 times, get 3 incompletions, you're not doing yourself any favors, and your defense is already tired enough as it is. Now they got to come back on the field. So you would swear that with every rant I do about play calling and teams that I'm passionate about every single team of the National Football League. I'm not. It's just logic. If you don't have a run game, kneel the ball 3 times. That's guaranteed to kill at least 2 minutes of clock because you get 40 seconds in between every time the previous play dies, because the play clock automatically resets to 40. So if you let that go down to 40 seconds to 0, take a knee. That's 40 seconds taken off the clock just right there. You do that again 2 more times. If you have to punt, who cares? You just killed over 2 minutes. Plus, you probably killed at least another 30 seconds with the punt group going onto the field as well. So I can't stress this enough, and I shouldn't be talking about one game and not even... I shouldn't be 5 minutes into a video still previewing the same game, but I just can't stress that enough with any team. If you have the lead, run the ball. Who cares if you're going for minimum gain? You're killing the clock. That's your friend. It just blows my mind how these coaches are supposed to be the guy, whether it's the offensive coordinator calling the plays, your head coach calling the plays, or anybody else calling the plays. It's just common sense. Run the ball. You don't even need to huddle every single time the next down. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Kill the clock. That's all I got to say about that. So if the Eagles can stick to that game plan, they should win against the Giants. But this Giants team just beat the Chargers team from 2 weeks ago, and they're a good team, so there's no guarantees that this is going to be an easy matchup for the Eagles. I'm not going to say this is a trap game, because all division games I find are going to be closer, or they should be closer, because you're even more competitive. You want to beat teams regardless, but you definitely want to beat teams within your division, because that can go a long way as to, again, by the end of the season, you see where you both are. So anyway, Eagles should win. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants pulled this one off. The next game takes place in London as the New York Jets are going to be playing against the Denver Broncos. Now, this is huge. The Jets, they're poor offensively, defensively. They don't have much game. It's just a matter of time before people start getting either benched, fired. Something has to happen, because you can't go 0-17. You can't. You do, you'd be the first team in history to do that because of the past couple of years where they've added an extra game. You just can't. Like, they got to win a game here and there. Like, there's no excuse for why the Jets are as bad as they are. I've gone on rants about the Jets so many times. I just feel like it's just the same thing over and over again that I've said about them. Inconsistency. Sorry. So I'm going to give the edge to the Broncos. They should pull this one off in London. All right, the Rams and the Ravens. There's not much to say about this. The Ravens are just incredibly injury prone, and they have too many guys on the IR. More importantly, the Rams, even though they lost last week to the 49ers, I believe they'll bounce back, and they should bounce back against the Ravens. So I will give the Rams the edge in this one. They should improve to 4-2. And I hate to say it, and I never would have guessed I'd say it, that it's more than likely that the Ravens will drop to 1-5. And at that point, I'm not sure when the trade deadline is, but I just honestly think you're 1-5. What is it? How likely is it you're going to be able to make a push for the playoffs? Because there's other teams that have better records than you, other teams that have beaten you, and if the Ravens happen to drop to 1-5, and say there's other teams in the AFC that are 3-2, 4-1, 5-1, 4-2, 3-3. Well, you're already 2, 3, 4 games behind them already. So the chances of you playing catch up when you start the season off 1-5 is very rare. And quick little side note, I'm not saying it can't happen, but the likeliness of the Ravens coming back, being 1-5, and get back to being a playoff team is very scarce and very rare. At that point, depending on how bad the injury is to Lamar, would you consider sitting him? I would, because what's the point of rushing him back? He has nothing to prove. He's not after individual awards. He's already won the MVP twice. He wants a Super Bowl, and you're not winning the Super Bowl when you're 1-5. I'm sorry. So I got the Rams all day on this one. The next one has the Carolina Panthers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Both these teams have 2 wins apiece. I'm giving the edge to Dallas in this one. I just think they should be the better team. They had a very good performance last week, so I'm hoping that they can carry that momentum into Carolina, and they should leave Raleigh, or whatever it is, 3-2-1. If the Panthers happen to win, I wouldn't be too upset about it. I wouldn't even be surprised. But I just think Dallas, on paper, is the better team and should get the victory over Carolina. All right. The next matchup has the Indianapolis Colts, who are 4-1, taking on the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals. This is a big game for both these teams. Now, you may think I'm exaggerating, and I know I always say that every game is crucial, every game is big. It's true. If the NFL season dragged out for as long as basketball and baseball and hockey, then yeah, you could afford to go on a 2 or 3 game losing streak. Sure, why not? When you have a 17 game schedule, and you're already 5 games in. Therefore, both these teams have 12 games remaining on their schedule apiece, which is exactly 3 months of football left. It sounds like it's a lot of time, but really it's not, especially when you're only playing once a week. The Cardinals, this is huge because if they can get this win, they can get back to 3-3, and they can kind of be in the hunt, so to speak, whether it's a wild card position or if there's a slim chance the 49ers lose, the Rams lose, the Seahawks lose, then you could possibly have a 3-way tie again or a 3-way tie for second place or something like that. So there's a number of possibilities that could go right for the Cardinals. If they happen to drop to 2-4, which is more than likely going to happen, then they are probably going to be at best 1 game, 2 games back of the Seahawks and Rams. They're already 2 games back of the 49ers, so if they happen to lose, 49ers win, then they're 3 games back of them. So good luck catching SF for that first place in the division. For the Colts, I can't rave enough about them. They're just an amazing team. I can't understand how they're performing so great. Daniel Jones has had a resurgence since joining Indy in the offseason, and his team all around him is so much better. This time last year, I'm pretty sure the Colts were like 2-3. So they've had a major drastic change from 2024 to 2025. And if they keep this pace up, they're currently the number 1 seed in the AFC. If they keep this pace up, they could finish as the number 1 seed in the AFC, get that huge, crucial rest for the wild card round. And if the Super Bowl happens to go through Indy, who knows what can happen? I mean, I know I'm getting ahead of myself because there's still 3 months of football left to be played, but Indy is just playing out of this world. Now, you could just make the argument that they beat the Raiders and they beat this team, that they're not doing that. They didn't play very competitive teams, but a win's a win, man. That's all I got to say. If you're putting up stats, I don't care who you're playing against, you have a good team. If you're not putting up stats, it just goes to show how SHIT your team really is, and Indy is far from that. So, yeah, I got Indy all day on this matchup. Jaguars and the Seahawks. This is going to be an insane matchup. 2 teams that are really well, 2 teams that could be competitive, and 2 teams that could also make the playoffs. You have the 3-2 Seahawks. I believe they're now currently tied in second place of the NFC West. They can make the playoffs. I don't see why they can't make it back into the postseason. For Jacksonville, they've had a resurgence. There's something about having new coaches and obviously having new players on your team that can really change how you are. Jacksonville last year, they were 1-4. They have completely flipped the script on this season. They were 4-1. They're tied with Indy for first place in the AFC South division. And obviously, if for some reason Arizona pulls off an upset in Indy and Jacksonville should win against Seattle, Jacksonville could be leading this division by the end of week number 6. And it's crazy to think that between Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston, that we're not giving enough credit to Houston, and we will get to them once I get to their preview. But those are the 2 best teams in the AFC South, and if the playoffs ended right now, both those teams would make it. So I know I said before that it's likely going to be 2 to 3 teams from the AFC West, possibly 2 to 3 teams from the AFC North. That bug's been squashed. I'm willing to bet that both Jacksonville and Indy at this moment in time will probably make the playoffs. I don't see why not. They're both playing red hot. They're both very good. Obviously, one team's going to be guaranteed to have home field advantage for the wild card round, or if they happen to get a first round bye, whatever, while the other team is a wild card team. So both the Jags and Indy are doing great. They're both playing NFC West teams at home. They both have a chance to win. So I'm going to give the edge to Jacksonville in this one. Seattle should get the win, and if they want to be competitive with the 49ers and the Rams for that division, this is a game that they want to win. They want to be able to improve to 4-2, and they could possibly be tied with San Fran by the end of week 6 with a win, and obviously if San Fran happens to lose. But even if they go to 3-3, they can still make up for it later on in the season. So it's not going to be a huge loss for the Seahawks if they happen to fall short, but they're playing a good Jags team. Like, there's not a whole lot you can really say. It's just going to be a very intriguing matchup, to say the least. All right, we got the Chargers and the Dolphins. That's the next matchup. Chargers get this game. I don't see a scenario where they lose 2 games in a row or 3 games or whatever it is in a row. It'll be 2 games in a row because they started off 3-0, then they dropped their last 2. And the Dolphins, they just lost to the Panthers. And the Panthers aren't that really good of a team. So I got Miami all day on this one. And if they drop to 1-5, start trading players away, start dressing players, different players, do something. They may even come down to firing people, whether it's GMs, coaches, because it's an absolute dumpster fire in a city and for a fan base and a team that had such high expectations. Like the Dolphins, since they got Tyreek Hill back in 2022, they've had 2 playoff games and 0 wins. They lost, I'm pretty sure, to the Bills, and then they've also lost to the Chiefs, ironically, Hill's former team. So it hasn't been that great. And they had one chance to get home field advantage. I believe that was at the end of the 2023 or 2024 season. They fell short, and then that's when they ended up going to play Kansas City in the wild card matchup. So what could have been from Miami, who knows how the playoffs would have been had they finished as the number 2 seed rather than having to travel from home. But it just hasn't been a good tenure with the team that they have and the team that they've had for the past number of seasons. And obviously Tua, he's had way too many injuries. He seems to be doing better this season, but I'm scared to death that he's going to take one more hit and that could be it. Like it's crazy to think that you play the game you love you play the game because you love it, but the game doesn't always love you back. So it's just an unfortunate situation. Now, I hope and I pray that Tua can stay healthy all year, because then obviously he can live up to his contract. But if he keeps getting hurt, it's so wishy-washy. I've said so many rants about this before, that health is has to be the most important thing. And if you put that aside and your dignity comes first, well, you're just damaging and hurting yourself in the long run. So, again, I hope and pray that Tua can stay healthy for an entire season, because it'd be great to see. Because when he's healthy, he's a good quarterback. But when he's not healthy, he's not playing. The Dolphins just don't seem to have rhythm. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But I believe the Chargers should bounce back and get a victory against the Dolphins. All right, the Cleveland Browns are 1-4. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-1. I'm giving the edge to the Steel City in this one. They are proven that there's no other team in the division has an above 500 record. I believe they have at least a 1-game lead, maybe a 1.5 game lead on the Bengals, since both the Ravens and the Browns have 1 win apiece. So there's no reason to tell me that Cleveland's going to go into Pittsburgh and pull off an upset. Just because they beat the Packers a couple weeks ago doesn't mean they're going to beat the Steel Curtain. And there's something about the Steelers that it amazes me how good they are, no matter how old their quarterback is or who they have as their receivers. Or it's Mike Tomlin must have a horseshoe up his rear or something. I don't know, man. It's just so weird that he's had so many different players come and go on the team, and he's been successful every single year. And it feels like he's been coaching for 20 years. It might be close to 20 years, because I'm pretty sure he took over in 06 or 07 for the Steelers. So it's been a long time. And normally, if you don't make the playoffs or you don't have that much success in the playoffs, the teams will let the coach go, because that could be the problem. The Steelers have never had in any way, any doubt, had any thought to getting rid of Tomlin. And like I said, most other places, if you don't make the playoffs consistently or you don't make much noise in the playoffs, then there's going to be some changes, especially at the coaching. But for some reason, the Steelers are like, nope, it's never the coach's problem. It's always the players. So it's crazy how successful that they've been for, like I said, 2+ decades. And now obviously they had prior success when Bill Cowher was the coach, and obviously they had Big Ben for that. Big Ben was the quarterback for both the coaches, and obviously he led them to 2 Super Bowls. Super Bowl championships. He led them to 3 Super Bowl appearances in his tenure, winning 2 of them, losing 1 of them. There. Now I can move on from that. But yeah, there's just something special about this Steelers team, and they should be the favorite to win the AFC North. I don't see why not. Prove me wrong. Prove to me that Cleveland's going to be better. Prove to me that Cincinnati's going to be better. Prove to me that Baltimore's going to be better. These teams have 4 wins apiece between all 3 of them. So I got the Steelers all day against the Browns. Doesn't matter who they start as their quarterback. All right, we have the 3-2 New England Patriots taking on the 1-4 New Orleans Saints. And I never would have guessed at the beginning of the season thinking New England was going to be as good as they were. I had a funny feeling that they'd be second or third in the AFC East. I knew they weren't going to be in 4th place because that already belonged to the Jets. But I just can't believe how great Drake May is playing. And at this rate, don't be surprised if either A, the Patriots make the playoffs, or B, they give they give the Bills a run for their money. I mean, they already beat them on Sunday night. So if they happen to win their next game at home against the Bills, they would have swept them. And if they finish with the same record, guess who's going to have home field advantage? The Patriots. And I never would have thought that that would even be a conversation we'd be having anytime soon, because the Bills dominated the AFC East for the last 5 years. It looked like it was basically going to be their division for the next 5 years, or 5+ years, however long Josh Allen is going to be their quarterback for. So this is a very good team. They're very underrated, probably very underappreciated, but if they keep this up, don't be surprised, like I said, if they either A, make the playoffs, or B, push the Bills out of their way and reclaim their AFC East crown. As for the team on the other side, the New Orleans Saints, they got the huge win last week, which nobody really saw coming against the Giants. I don't have much faith in them beating the Patriots. I've just raved about how great the Patriots are and how much of an amazing quarterback Drake May is. Unless he goes down and lays an egg in the Big Easy, I got a funny feeling that the Patriots are going to improve, or should improve, to 4-2. And depending on how the Bills do, they could be tied for first in the AFC East after this. And who would have guessed that? Certainly not me. All right, 2 teams that are really underperforming, the Tennessee Titans and the Las Vegas Raiders. Both these teams have 1 win apiece. They're both coming into this contest 1-4 and 4th place in their respective divisions. So who is going to get their second win of the season? Can I possibly predict a tie? I mean, there's no reason why I can't predict a tie after the Cowboys and Packers game tied 2 weeks ago. Man, I'll give the edge to the Raiders, I guess. I mean, the Titans didn't have much business winning the game against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals shit the bed at the end, so I'm sorry. The Titans still should technically be 0-5, but miracles do happen, I guess. So I'll give the edge to Vegas, but it's a very narrow edge. Both these teams, like I said, they're really not that good. Now, speaking of going from bad teams to good teams, 2 teams that are atop of their respective divisions, the 4-1 San Francisco 49ers are taking on the 4-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one has Game of the Week written all over it. And, I mean, I'll be watching my Broncos and the Jets play, of course, but this is a game I definitely will be locked in. Whoever wins this game is going to have home field advantage over the other once the postseason comes around. There's no doubt in my mind anymore that San Fran is a very good team. I knew they would be a good team. I know the NFC West is going to be competitive with the Seahawks and Rams. Both those teams are just a game behind San Fran. So if San Fran happens to lose this game and say the Rams and Seahawks both win, you could be having a 3-way tie for first place in that division. But I bet against the 49ers the last 2 weeks, and it's bit me in the rear. And I also bet against Tampa Bay last week, and that kicked me in the ass. So who do I really go with? I want to say San Fran, but my heart is saying Tampa Bay. How many times have they had come back? And if I'm not mistaken, they came back last week and won their game. So I got a funny feeling Tampa Bay at home will get the victory over San Fran. They should improve to 5-1. And this is going to get juicy, because if Tampa can keep playing at this pace, and the fact that they're doing without Mike Evans, that just blows my mind. It just absolutely blows my mind of how well that they're playing without basically their top guy. And if Tampa Bay can improve to 5-1 and they can keep this pace up, they can finish first or second in the NFC. I think the highest they finished was in 3rd place last year or the year before. So, like, the ceiling for them has to be. They're almost a shoe-in to get the NFC South crown for like the 4th or 5th year in a row. But I feel like their aspirations are even higher. They're like, listen, we're a really good team. We don't want to just be one and done in the playoffs. We want to be able to host a divisional game. And at this rate, they possibly could host a divisional game. And if they can finish in first place in the NFC, they could literally have home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs. The NFC would have to go through Tampa, and that could be a very scary road. And who knows, maybe this Tampa Bay team could make it back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2020-21. So both these teams are very good. And I know I keep making this excuse for the 49ers, but I just think Tampa Bay is a little bit better. And just because the 49ers are still a little banged up, and I know I've said that before, and they keep winning, so I could say this again and they could go and beat Tampa Bay, but I think Tampa at home should have the victory over the 49ers. All right, Green Bay and Cincinnati. I got Green Bay all day on this one. They're just coming off their bye, sitting at 2-1-1, while the Bengals are 2-3. Whoever the starting quarterback is for Cincinnati, good luck. I don't believe it'll be Joe Flacco. He was just signed yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm pretty sure, I don't think it's Jake Browning, but there is another guy, if I'm not mistaken, who will more than likely be under center for Cincinnati. I've said this before, and I'll say it probably 14 more times until Joe Burrow comes back. The Bengals, it's a shame that they started off 2-0, and they're likely going to be losing 4 in a row. I don't see a situation where they go into Green Bay and pull off a win. Now, as long as Green Bay can be like Philly and you use their running game and kill the clock and not throw costly turnovers, then there's no reason why Green Bay can't find a way to win this game. And as for Cincinnati, obviously a win would be huge because then they could technically be still second in the AFC North. But if for some reason the Ravens win or some reason the Browns win and the Bengals lose, they could find themselves in 4th place. They could find themselves in last place in the AFC North, which is crazy to think because just a month ago they were the best team in that division. But obviously losing a guy like Joe Burrow really hurts your chances of being successful, which is why they brought in Joe Flacco, I guess. But yeah, I got Green Bay in this matchup. The Sunday night matchup should be an intriguing one. I don't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but if I had to say a Super Bowl matchup, this would be it. Chiefs and Lions. Why not? The Chiefs obviously coming off a crushing loss last week. The Lions are getting red hot, and they're basically they're at where they're playing right now is they're playing just as good, if not last year. Maybe whatever. I'm getting all sidetracked, but yeah, the Lions. There's a reason they're 4-1. There's a reason they're the best team in their division, and they beat the Chiefs 2 years ago. If you don't remember that, on the opening night for 2023-2024, they went into Kansas City and beat them, and then obviously they went on to have a very successful season that year, winning their division. They've won it 2 years in a row. There's no reason why they can't win it 3 years in a row now. They have a 2-game lead on the Packers and the Bears, respectively, and a 1-game lead on the Vikings. So the Vikings are right on the Lions' tail, but I think the Lions are better than Minnesota, so they should keep on rolling. And if the Chiefs can drop to 2-4, as a Broncos fan, that would make my day. Anytime the Chiefs lose, I'm ecstatic. Obviously, if the Raiders and Chargers happen to lose as well, that'd be a great weekend altogether, but you can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. But I'm hoping the Lions can go into Kansas City and drop the former AFC champs, we'll put it that way, in the Chiefs. Now, even though I predicted the Lions will win, I would not be surprised if KC did, because they still have Mahomes, they still have Kelsey, they still got a bunch of wide receivers on their team, and Mahomes could literally close his eyes and throw the ball backwards down the field for 30 yards. So who knows what can happen? He's a magician on the field. The Monday night matchup took place in Atlanta. We have the 2-2 Atlanta Falcons taking on the 4-1 Buffalo Bills. And I'm saying this right now, the Bills are winning this game. I know I said last week that they should have won against the Patriots, but divisional games are tricky. And those games are the ones you kind of overlook. I'm willing to bet a lot of people probably saw the Patriots and they're like, no, we'll get this. Let's focus on the next one. And that not saying it did happen, but it could have possibly happened. But yeah, they definitely overlooked the Patriots. The Patriots went into Buffalo and pulled off a win. So the Bills are definitely want to get back on that horse, because if they lose this game to the Falcons and the Patriots win their game, which they might more than likely will, then the Patriots could take over first place of the AFC East. And I don't think anybody would have seen that coming. I don't think anybody would have guessed that that would even be a possibility. But look at where we're at. So for the Bills, this is a huge must-win game if they still want to be atop of the AFC East, but more importantly, try to stay competitive for that number one spot on their side of the football. For the Falcons, obviously, if they drop to 2-3, then they'll be guaranteed 2 games behind the Buccaneers. If they happen to win this game and say for some crazy reason the Bucs lose, then they'd just be a game behind them. So this is a huge game for both these teams that they both want to stay competitive in their respective divisions. And we got the other Monday night game takes place in Washington. We have the 3-2 Washington Commanders taking on the 2-2 Chicago Bears. I bet you if you're a Bears fan, you probably wish you didn't have your bye week, because they played really well the last 2 games, especially against the Las Vegas Raiders in week number 4, if not mistaken. So the Bears are probably wishing, man, couldn't we have waited to later on to have our bye week, because they had momentum. They looked like they were they're a good team, and the Commanders are a little bit better. Oh boy, who am I going to pick? Am I going to have a good week or a bad week when it comes to my predictions? I'll give the edge to the Commanders in this one just because they have home field advantage. If Chicago was home, I'd probably say the Bears. But I just think after the Commanders won last week, they finally got back to above 500. They want to keep that momentum going because they want to be competitive. They want to be able to still be in the hunt for a playoff position. And I know I say this probably 100 times in these videos, but you lose to the Bears, and if the Bears have the same record as you by the end of the season, they finish higher than you in the standings, so they have a better chance of making it to the postseason. So critical game for both these teams if they want to stay competitive. And obviously if the Commanders happen to win and say that the Eagles don't play or don't win, then they could be tied for first place in that division. That's how close and tight these games are right now. Now, granted, with that being said, once the season's like halfway through, 3/4 through, then you're going to notice how some teams are pulling away from the rest of the herd. So at the start of the season, it's always it's like a race, like a racehorse. Like it's always cluttered at the very beginning, but towards the end, you do have that one that gets slightly ahead, or that does get slightly ahead of their opponents. So a huge game, like I said, for both these teams, but I will give the edge to the Commanders on the second Monday Night Football game. So only 2 teams have their bye week this week. That's the 2-3 Houston Texans, and they're kind of in the same situation as the Bears. They just won 2 games in a row. They're probably hoping to keep that momentum going. Unfortunately, every team does have a bye week, so they will continue in week number 7. And for the Vikings, they are sitting at 3-2. Worst case scenario, the Packers and Bears both win, and then there's basically a 3-way tie for second place. Best case scenario, the Packers and the Bears lose, and Minnesota would automatically still be guaranteed to be in second place. So there's a lot hanging. There's a lot of possibilities that could happen between now and Sunday, or Monday night, I should say, because that's when Chicago plays, to see where Minnesota sits in the standings. So I know this video was extremely long. I do apologize, but thank you all for those that have tuned into my channel and that still tune in. As always, if you like this type of content and you want to, feel free to share, go ahead. But if you like this type of content, hit the sub button if you haven't already. I will be doing videos as often as I can. For those that don't know this, I love football, I love hockey, and now both these sporting events are taking place around the same time. So I will be doing videos for sure every single day. I will try to stay up to date with as much news and trades as possible, but there's no guarantees. But I will for sure be looking over scores and standings week in and week out. All right, I better wrap this up because I'm already 35 minutes into this video. Yeah, I've said my piece. So, as always, until next time, take care.